So let me check if. Okay, I think it's good now. Thanks for letting me know, Sheik. So yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Come on, we're still waiting for one more guy. And where you go?
Dine. Whoa. Hello. The elbow are jumping near me. Where are you? Oh no. Elbow the hedgehog. Was it hedgehog? Yeah.
Some people think I need you to see. Maybe when we get back, I'll be off to find another way. And after all this said, and you still know, just a little bit. Put your hands together. Oh, you can.
Wait, go inside the whale tank, Lena. There's a little surprise. Whale?
When you go, even told to say I don't love you like I did yesterday. Sometimes I somehow so sick and so of falling to speed, and maybe when I look you down and down, it's what you understand.
Gunfight. Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
Just a night aglow.
No mistakes, no prisoners.
Shut him on.
Maintain pressure. Next round we crush them.
They quit.
This is who we are.
Smile though your heart is aching. Smile. Listen when you smile.
Gunfight. Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
You're just so fun on a man.
Triggers pulled, let's go.
Oh no! What happened?
One round gone. We're not dead yet, are we, lads?
I go to bed tomorrow. There's a lot of work to be done. Still, oh, okay.
That's the way, on to the next round. Let's get this done.
Oh no, I don't like this weapon.
That round. On to the next.
Oh, crap. Oh, it was a shot. Okay.
Let's get this done.
Oh, still a shotgun, man. What's with the shotguns?
Taking the advantage. Make sure we keep it.
Really hate that gun. Both of them. So inaccurate.
Let's get to work.
EBR? What's an EBR? Oh, okay, it's a sniper.
On to the next round. Pick it up.
That's a sniper. Okay.
They're on
Marksman
match point.
rifle.
Can't take another loss.
I'm so trash.
Safe gun. Your job.
What happened? Okay.
Slap his little ruler. Okay.
Gunfight.
No, I don't
Eliminate
like
all
this
enemies
place.
or capture the overtime
But
flag
yeah,
to
it's
win.
fine. I just don't like it. That's all.
Right, move your arm. You're all we've got. Keep moving. Take the advantage. Make sure we keep it.
Can do this, Phantom J. Oh no! It all breaks.
Two wins down.
Nice one, nice one.
Triggers pulled. Let's go.
Whew.
3 up, 3 down. Keep going. We're losing ground. Head in. Stay frosty.
EB, okay. I think it's
next one. Now, keep up the pressure. Switching sides. One round for the win. Make it happen. Mission accomplished. Top marks.
So bad.
Just getting chased by things that we don't want to get chased by. And first six Smiley, or Beercat. I don't know if I got that wrong, but this is Smiley. He's kind of just in the corner. But this is what happens if I hit Beercat. Yep, that's happening. Oh, don't worry, he can't get out of there. Lena, where'd you go? Oh, the African lion. The African lion. Oh, jeez. Oh, hey, African lion. You just got flown into space. Where'd you go?
Where'd you go? I missed you so. Seems like it's been forever since you've been gone. Please come back home.
Where'd you go, Grandpa?
Where'd you go?
Where'd you
I
go?
missed you
Can't see you
so.
at all.
Seems like it's been
Smiley's still in
forever. Bread. Nana, Witcher 3. Yeah, The Witcher. Since you've been gone, please come back home. Sometimes I feel like, sometimes I wanna quit and be a normal for a bit.
Daddy forgot to fetch you on time. Look, guess what? Oh, you're smashing the car.
At least, Prince, you were able to read books, right?
Oh, you were reading books. That's so good.
It's like he didn't have a choice, so we're gonna remove the iPad and the laptop so that you will read books.
Flag to win. Let's get this done.
like the video and also subscribe. I'm almost 100,000 subscribers. That wasn't supposed to happen. Oh, here I am. Oh, hey, Grandpa. What's up? Who are you? I'm your grand. Oh, where am I? Alright, well, yeah, hello, everybody. This is the Frisky Frog.
It sounds debating. Told me.
Harry's mod. And today we're in this insane laggy map, and yeah, this is gonna be next boss inside the zoo. And we got my sister here, Alina. What was that? You wanna go to Pop Dog? The dog that refreshes. I like that Golden Gate Break. But yeah, anyway, this is Bay Area Zoo, or it's on CSGO, and yeah, we're gonna be testing out the, just getting chased by things that we don't.
Gunfight. Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
Control your emotions.
Yep, that's
Control your feelings.
We've been clear. Move.
that gun.
Their confidence grows. Use it against them.
Games. You respect mommy and daddy. Got it?
Got it.
Nicely done.
Life is their mission. So be it. Show them what we do.
I'm just eating.
Make sure to like the video and also 100,000 subscribers.
All that is left.
Daddy.
They're making us fight for it. Give it to them.
What the heck?
We're not done yet. Make it happen. Weapons ready. Move in.
Oh. The heck with this gun?
On to the next round. Pick it up.
Is that YouTube Kids?
Yeah.
Where?
I didn't beat
Even that one. The heck? Ah, that wasn't
Have the
latency.
advantage.
Latency.
Keep pushing. Move to engage.
Fun.
Seconds. Objective on the field. Go get it.
We're gonna lose. Oh, okay.
2 wins down. Keep up the pressure.
I'm just eating.
10 seconds. 3 up, 3 down. Keep fighting. Weapons ready. Move in.
I really hate that gun. I swear.
Your weapon. We're
Really
not
hate that
finished
gun.
yet. It's down to this round. Вперед! Push them back!
These guys are cheating.
Objective on the field. Go get it. One round finished. Do not let them breathe. Switching sides. Good work, soldier. We have turned it around. Good work. We expect great things.
Oh, we won. What's up, Sheik? Sorry. Yeah, I'm fine, man. Thanks. How about you? Yeah, it's still a COD. I'm just playing the gunfight. Feel like I didn't want to go run around and with a huge map, so this is one of my favorite game mode. When I just want to chill. It is still COD, man. And by the way, thanks for letting me know that
Gunfire.
the game wasn't showing on the screen, so I had to restart it. It's this gun. I'm gonna really hate this gun. Really hate that gun.
Shake it off. Focus on the next round.
Overall, how many dollar did you spend to build your PC? It's not actually a PC. It's a laptop. I bought a gaming laptop. It is the Asus ROG. I'm not sure how much is it in a dollar, but
That's it, lads. On to the next
feel
round.
like it's
Get ready.
around $1,500. something, somewhere around that area. Not include just the laptop itself, not including the accessories and stuff and everything else. And so yeah, it cost me around 1,500.
Shake it off. Focus on the next round.
Yeah, it is. It is. But the latest models right now, they're not really heavy already. I mean, it weighs around 2 kilos, and not there. Unlike before, you're gonna cost your shoulder just by bringing these laptops. But right now, they're quite lighter already.
Move up fire, go!
Yeah, it is. My friend have Asus ROG phone. If I was not able to grab them, I was just on a piece. I was planning to buy the Asus ROG phone as well, but it's just that I don't really play games that much on phones. I only use my phones for, like, you know, browsing. Browsing and Facebook and socials. Aside from the phone, the normal phone function. Although, you know, I do play games with my phone from time to time, but not really, not that much. Like, I think the longest time that I played games was, you know, my phone was, what game was that? I think it was, Arena of Valor or the Mobile Legends. Yeah, I played those games a couple of months ago. And so bad.
Put it behind you. We've got work to do. I hit match point. Tie it up or it's over.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be a thing, really, rather than building a desktop. I mean, if you can see games right now, it's so good. They're so good at it, with even just the mobile. In fact, I was playing the PUBG and Call of Duty when they got launched, and I was like, man, the graphics are so incredible that I thought I was still on my 90s 2000 desktop. That's why it's still nice to have a phone. I mean, it's still nice to have a latest phone model so that you can still be able to, you know, you have the choice whenever you're not at home. You can still play games. the only thing I hate about mobile gaming is that the way they monetize like everything. It's like back in back in the days with in desktop gamings or PC gamings when developers try to monetize so bad with the games they release. It's like you have to buy everything else other than the base game. Just like this one. At least these Call of Duty, they, although you need to buy it, and they do have seasonal. Well, you're not required to buy the seasonal. You can still be able to play everything on it, other than the skins and the models. But yeah, I don't really need those models and skins. All I wanted was that I'd be able to access everything, maps, game modes, and everything, the stuff. Yeah, it depends. It depends. If you have the time, to invest on a PC. I mean, if you have the money to invest on a PC, you might as well have the time to research
Gunfight.
on which parts,
Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
which parts should you use so that you'll be able to save more, rather than just going to the store and just pick everything up and build your own. You're gonna be a bit expensive. But if you have time to. Oh, fuck. But if you have the time to research about the parts, then for sure you'll be able to save a lot. Oh crap.
You're all that's left. That's 2 wins down. Keep pushing.
So yeah, if your friend was able to build a PC that can run games at high settings, and he only costed like $375, yeah, kudos to your friend, man. That means he probably researched about the parts.
Get ready for the next one.
Yeah, so might as well you do the same. But as for me, I didn't really have that much of a choice because we were always traveling, so I had to pick a laptop instead. I had to sell my desktop. Back at home so that I can be able to buy the laptop. Yo, Nike Lee, thanks for following, man. Thanks for following. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, he is a PC master. Then you better ask your friend for help. That's the only way you can save. That's the only way you can save, and you can build your own PC better. And it's nice to have a friend like that, man. But as for me, I really didn't have much of a choice. I'm so bad. Nope.
Good work. Keep it consistent. sides. One more round. Destroy them.
But right now, if you really wanted to build a monster PC, then that's gonna cost you $5,000. I guess. Oh.
All in a good day's work.
I had a desktop before back in the day, back in my country, and I had to sell it because apparently we can't bring it. the case was so heavy. It's like the case alone weighs around 2 kilos already. So I had to sell it and bought myself a laptop. But yeah, I had to buy a monitor as well. I've been playing with I've been a laptop player since like 3 years ago.
Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
Then but I don't like him to talk. If I ask something, then he'd start to talk like other side talk. He is a very talkative person, so I never go for help.
Got him on the rope. Don't let your guard down.
That's a nice aim. Maybe you can just ask him for like tips. Man, so bad at handguns. Maybe you can probably ask him tips, or maybe you can ask him if he can give you a setup at this cost, at this price range. Ooh. Ow!
Now the squad's count. We've got him on the rope. Don't let your guard down.
Thanks, man. Just ask him. Ask him for like a range. It was so bad. Just give him a price range and probably he can give you a list of parts that you need to buy. Otherwise, you can try YouTube.
Give him a proper English welcome.
But be sure to ask him. But be sure to ask him like when you have the money already. I mean, you have the cash, you have the amount. I mean, you have the funds. I mean, I'm saying that ask him if you're ready to purchase it, because it'll be a waste if you don't purchase it. on AFK. Oh, what?
That's a 4-win streak. Let's take 5. Switching
Because as
sides.
you know, if you ask now and then
They've almost had it. One more round,
you're
chat.
planning to buy it like 2 years or a year later, it'll be a waste because technologies are you know how technology runs today. It's like when I bought my laptop, the graphics card was around that time was the latest, and after a month they released the RTX series, and that's just so better if you ask him you're ready to buy it already. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. But you better be sure that I mean, you will also do your studies, your grades. I think you mentioned before that your father will get mad at you if you fail. So yeah. Because once you get your own PC, that will be a trap. It will be like how you control your syrup. So study first. But anyway, I think you can manage your time pretty well. Like me, I'm not really good at it. Two days and 23 hours and 42 minutes.
Gunfight. Eliminate our enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
Did we won the last round? Wasn't paying attention. That bag is huge.
Put them in the ground.
Yeah, that latency, that aim.
Shake it off. Focus up for the next
Why
round.
it has to be? Was he doing a bunny hop? Was he doing a bunny hop?
That's a win. Let's get back out there.
He was doing a bunny hop.
Put them in the ground.
Where is he?
It's down to you. Get it done.
have only one friend, is DIJINN. She all time get better and more. I mean, so my father said all time she. Oh man, that's a bit old fashioned. What the heck?
10 seconds.
I gotta say, right now your father is like
Losing ground.
is
Take it back.
is an old fashioned.
Wipe them out.
Thing is, that's not gonna work. I mean, seriously, why can't I kill them?
But we're not dead yet. Get ready.
All I know is that we are all unique, and probably there's some areas that you can be better than your brother. What the?
A tough prey, this one. Get ready to go back out.
That was in his face.
Switching sides. They win this, they win it all. Time to
okay.
push.
That's not a problem. We can just restart the round. They're both there.
You're the last one. Watch your ass. Ten seconds. Took that round. We will take another. They're on match point. We can't take another loss. Match point.
No,
Take another
why?
one.
It's gotta be Odin. I don't like this. Well, it's gotta be Odin.
Lost the objective.
No problem, man. No problem. My father is. Yeah, mine as well. Yeah, I think that we had some little. We share a little bit of the same experience, since my family or my father's policeman as well, and yeah, they do that back then, comparing. But later on, they're gonna realize. They're going to realize that it's pretty much different nowadays. You can probably suck at this point, but in some areas, in other areas, you can shine. Probably it's not your area, but yeah.
Gunfight. Eliminate all
Oh, I love
enemies or
this
capture the
gunfight.
overtime flag to win.
Revolver. Oh, I'm the only one. Okay. I can live with
All
that.
assets are secure on site.
On my screen, I was shooting him already. In his screen, I wasn't shooting him. That's a problem. What's this? Snow?
All right, get to work.
This is challenging. This is so challenging. It's gotta buy
They're
them.
like meat to the grinder. Seconds. That objective. We are regroup and stay focused.
It's just hiding
The next
there all
round is
along.
ours.
Man,
It's
I
down to this
have
round.
0
Push the enemy
wins.
back.
Oh, God.
sure we keep it. They hit match point. Tie it up or it's over.
Okay.
Learn from the
Okay.
loss, Tovarish. Adapt or die.
So yeah, I guess that's enough for the gunfight, and we're going for the let's see how much. Oh, we need skill. Longest skill, it's 79 out of 100. Okay, this is already unlocked. Unlocked. Oh, it says crouching. Okay. So we just need a crouching. Mounted. After reloading. Oh, it's already unlocked. Okay. So crouching after reloading and mount. Oh, okay. This is the last gunfight. Then we're gonna go for the death match. Casto. Your English is not that bad, man.
Gunfight. Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
Your English is good. I mean, I can understand it, so it's good.
Set the tempo. Keep it up in the next round.
Anyway.
Shake it off. Focus on the next round.
AR, please.
Move up fire. Go.
1911. One.
Put it behind you. We got work to do.
Welcome back.
Don't let your guard down.
Had to shot him three times.
Give him a proper English
Oh, no,
welcome.
shotgun, no. I hate shotguns.
Two wins down. Keep up the pressure.
Welcome back, man. Welcome back.
Three up, three down. Keep going. Let's do this.
What's this? Ram 7. I just hate the laser.
That's a 4-win streak. Let's see 5.
You can make another channel like
Match point.
Vlog,
Another
Roast,
round and we
etc.
go.
because you have good advice. Yeah, I'm just so lazy editing, man. I used to do a lot of photography before, but I got so lazy with it, the post processing. And if you can see some of my videos before in YouTube, it's all some of it are processed, post processed, and before I post it, and it's just not really for me. I still have the software, and yeah, it's not for me. I kind of prefer just play and do whatever it is, rather than just spend my time editing. Most of the professionals are like, they have their own team of editors, but that's them. They've already established their channels. But yeah, from time to time, I do edit my
Eliminate all
videos,
enemies or
but
capture
not
the
that much
overtime
lately.
flag to win.
Nowadays, like, just hang and play and just stream.
Weapons ready. Move in. On to the next round. Pick it up.
It's not just because you have a good device. It's also the content. If you want to do a vlog, you need to know what content you want to go. What the? That's one of my problems, because I don't have topics. I mean, I don't know what to discuss. I don't know what to,
Weapons ready. Move in.
I mean, talk about.
Last. Keep moving.
Oh man. Yeah, that's really one of the major factor if you want to go vlog, because you don't have any topics. Did he just okay?
Their confidence grows. Use it against them.
So the
Weapons
guy
ready.
just quit.
Move in. No store. Take this round. We stay
Why
alive.
has to be this gun? There were two of them.
Find your courage. Victory will come.
Oh, shoot it somewhere else. What the heck was that? What's that? But most of the video I did with the mobile, but I never told it. That's also one thing with if you wanna have your own channel. I mean, if you wanna have your own vlog channel. You need to have your own videos, your own materials. Because if the videos or the contents are not yours, then if whatever reason your friend or the owner of the video would want Twitch the TV punch, okay. I mean, about copyright issues. So if you want to have your own vlogs channel, you better have your own materials as well, contents. That's why I just prefer streaming. Just do whatever game that I like, rather than thinking of what's it? Oh, okay. Thinking of whatever contents I should put up there. Oh, I'm a bit late for this game.
Reloading.
It already started, yeah. I'm a late comer.
Reloading.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Skills, yeah, of course. It's all in the skills. It's just that you needed the device.
Changing mags.
Allied cruise missile away.
You just needed a device to make your work easier. It is from Premiere Pro, but it's from KineMaster mode. Yeah, most people nowadays are using KineMaster. I just hate the free versions of KineMaster because it has a watermark on it. But if you bought the full version of KineMaster, then I think my wife is also using the KineMaster for her mobile. There's one guy here.
Care package arriving on station.
Aircraft target confirmed.
Good copy. Man 2-2 on approach.
I believe I have the power director as well on my cell phone. I bought the license for it, and I like it.
Halfway there, keep fighting.
There was one guy over there. Yeah, definitely. And besides, phones nowadays are becoming powerful enough. So bad.
Enemy cruise missile.
No. Of course, it's got to be me. Still there? No?
UAV overhead.
Oh, fudge. Kill us both. Did he kill him? No?
Enemy cluster strike incoming.
'But where are they?
Less than a minute. We're winning this fight. Hold it back.
187.
Friendly UAV overhead. Enemy VTOL in the AR.
Oh crap, Vito.
Time's up. Move your ass.
Can't even see him. Picture perfect. There. No, I've got all the pads. Yeah. I was a bit late in that game. Came in, I think, almost half. I played Fortnite back there, but right now, I tried to play Fortnite when Razer opened up their official store here in London, and I went to their shop, and they have this gaming room downstairs, and you can try the computers, you can try the PCs, but then they had Fortnite in it, so I tried to play it and can't even aim properly. It's like everyone is building stuff, and I was just there running. But yeah, if you ask me if I can play in Fortnite, yeah, I can play Fortnite, but it's not that. I don't really enjoy playing Fortnite because of the build stuff. I would think if I needed to play like more of it rather than just going into a game, just chill, because it has it have different mechanics. I didn't like the building parts. Oof. No problem, no problem. Have a good night as well, bro. Oh, gosh.
Grenade out!
So bad.
Gotcha!
What are you doing?
Good copy, Dagger 2-3 on approach for drop.
No, come on, Raider.
Ground team requesting flyover.
Copy.
Get down. Changing max. Oof.
Falcon 3-0.
Good night, brother. Good night.
Changing max.
What the heck? Revenge of the Fallen.
Enemy force deployed.
So you go, listen. Are you singing?
I'm going to take it lying down.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Dine is so trippy now. Wait, run to, like, go into this car and run. Trippy.
Jingle.
Everything else is not mobile. Does it work? It does work, yes! No mobile! This was literally my your use video. It was? Yeah.
So this is the last round for tonight because I'm gonna go watch Netflix The Witcher. It's out already, so I'm quite excited for it. That's why I can't even focus on the game. But yep. Let me just grab a water.
Jingle bell, go bell, jingle all the way.
We're losing ground. Focus.
Wish I could. just when you're about to leave and your friend is online. Haha, kinda convenient. Holy! What?
Enemy personal radar out. Enemy UAV overhead.
It's gonna come out there. Seriously.
We have control. Crush them. Allied UAV overhead. Allied precision airstrike incoming. Beware.
That's a kill. Lockdown confirmed.
Good copy. Tiger 2-3 on approach from top. Halfway there. Keep going. And the sentry gun on station.
Beacon deployed.
Allied cruise missile launched. Allied UAV overhead. Sentry guns down. Allied cruise missile launched. Guns down.
They're just camping there. How will they win? from? Where did he came from? Where the heck? Skiller 301.
Fight as one. Earn your victory. Friendly care package inbound. Our face in you was well placed.
New update. Again? Oh, there's a maintenance. Okay.
Does it work? It does work, yes! Snowmobile! This was literally my very cute video. It was? Yeah. Oh, I want you to get a picture of me. I honestly don't remember. I don't think it moves. It does move. You're doing that. Ugh. There it goes. Thing will explode. Itself. Okay! Doesn't like grenades. That was really satisfying.
Turn around. Every now and then a little bit lonely. Alright, there's a server maintenance, so yep. Every now and then I get a